Kill the boy Jon Snow and let the man be born. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new Game of Thrones review. Yes, I know, Kenny's not here, so you're stuck with me. But don't worry, he'll be back next week. Until then, let's talk about this week's episode, Kill the Boy. I have no quick thoughts this week, so I'll jump right into Greyworm and Missandei. So Greyworm survived, yay! Unfortunately, Sir Barristan didn't make it. We kind of expected that only one of them was gonna make it out alive. And like I said in last week's review, Sir Barristan went out like a champion. And while it is sad, I do want to focus on Greyworm because he got an amazing scene with Missandei in this episode. Oh. I've been loving these two for a really long time, and I think it took Greyworm to almost die for them to move on to the next level of their relationship. But it was such a sweet moment, and definitely something that you don't expect in Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is so cutthroat, but this is like the most genuine, honest relationship I think in the whole show. I liked it. Tears, swoon, all of that. Moving on to Daenerys. Well, she's not happy that Barristan died, and she decided to feed the leaders of Meereen's great families to the dragons. Well, at least one of them. And as she talked about how a mother doesn't abandon or give up on her children, I thought, well, okay, but you gotta lock them up. And sure, she talked about discipline, but as Kenny and I mentioned, those two were the good dragons. On the other hand, she did feed them. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's actually the first time that she actually feeds them a human. So the dragons were like, yeah, all right, it's a feast. So I don't know if that's gonna make them like her a little more, forgive her for locking them up. I don't know, but they sure were happily eating that guy. Human barbecue. Actually, I like the fact that Daenerys realized that maybe her approach wasn't the right one and that she really needed to find her own path again. And I like the fact that she asked Missandei for her opinion, which actually led to probably the funniest moment of the episode, when she goes to see the leader of one of Meereen's great family in prison, and she's like, yeah, I was wrong and I'm sorry. And to make sure that everything's forgiven, I'm gonna marry you. He went from almost being burnt and eaten by dragons to marrying the mother of dragons. He's like, I think I'm happy. That poor guy had like the worst day and the best day at the same time. And at the same time, I'm like, wait, what, Daenerys, you're gonna marry this guy? Just not sure that long term this makes sense. How you thought this through? I guess I'm gonna trust her, because she seems to be back to the old Daenerys who made smart decisions, so we'll see how that works out. Let's go to Winterfell and talk about Ramsay. That scene when he's talking to Miranda about what he does to things that bore him, and she's like, oh yeah, I remember. I'm like, yeah, of course you remember. You were freaking there. We all remember that scene because of how traumatic that was. Dogs running after the poor girl. Anyway, bad things happen to people around Ramsay. And you know, the fact that she doesn't seem worried about what he could do to her probably doesn't bode really well for her. And then we also learned that Roose Bolton raped his mother and then was about to kill him, but really decided to just keep him because, you know, it was his son after all. But I'm like, no wonder you're messed up. What the hell? And all I could think this whole time was, if Joffrey can die, so can Ramsay. Sansa. The good news is Brienne got her a message letting her know what to do in case she's ever in trouble. So yay, Brienne and Podrick. On the other hand, she's still stuck with the Boltons for now. And it looks like Miranda has taken an interest in her, which cannot be good either. Also, was anybody kind of screaming at the TV going, Sansa, don't go in dark, weird places just because this girl tells you it's safe to go. You'll find a surprise. No, have you not seen movies? You probably haven't, have you? Well, the good news is it was only Reek/Theon there. So it wasn't like she was in danger, but it could have been. I also love that Sansa kind of stood her ground a little bit in this episode when she said, this isn't a strange place, this is my home. It's the people who are strange. You tell them, Sansa, you tell them you took my home, and you know that I know that you know. And having Sansa also see Theon reminded us that she still thinks her brothers are dead, but we know they're not. Even though we're not gonna see them this season, at least we know they're still alive. That's something to look forward to, the reunion, hopefully one day. Let's move on to Jon Snow, who I guess is going on a road trip with Tormund. On the one hand, I understand why he's doing what he's doing and trying to bring the wildlings, because they really need all the help they can get to fight the White Walkers. On the other hand, I keep thinking, I don't know if I would like the Thenns to be south of the wall. Somehow, I think that would be trouble. But I think that ultimately, they kind of need help against the White Walkers, because the White Walkers are kind of badass. Stannis. Totally unexpected, but Stannis and Sam had quite a nice moment. So simple, yet so much going on for these completely opposite characters. I love Sam's enthusiasm about trying to figure out how to defeat the White Walkers, and then Stannis kind of, you know, giving him some respect for who his father is, and also respecting all the research he's done and the fact he's killed a White Walker. I mean, he might not look like a fighter, but Sam's a badass. Who else has killed a White Walker? No one. Stannis, I kind of liked you in this moment. And now Stannis is marching to Winterfell. And I gotta say, I'm rooting for him. Stannis! I know, I don't do it as well as Kimmy. Hopefully he can defeat the Boltons, because I'll take Stannis over the Boltons any day. Now on to Tyrion and Jorah. And as Tyrion continues to try to get his hands on some wine, which doesn't look like it's gonna happen, Jorah decides that yeah, it's a good idea to go through Valyria, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, that this is the first time we actually see it. And you can kind of see how beautiful it must have looked. I almost kind of want to see what it looked like before. And they see a dragon, which I'm guessing is Drogon, because there are no other dragons out there, right? Right? Are there other dragons? Because, I mean, I think it's Drogon, but you know, that would just be crazy if there was another one. Which I don't think there is. Is there? So let's just assume they saw Drogon, and Tyrion is definitely like, okay, so she definitely has dragons. She can definitely win. And then you get that shot where you see the guy in the background, out of focus, jumping in the water, and you're like, whoa, what was that? And the Greyscale people appear, and you're like, holy crap, and it just kind of seemed a little crazy. Jorah got touched by one of the Greyscale people, and is starting to have some Greyscale of his own. So that's not good. So now the question is, how fast will the Greyscale take to actually spread all over him, and how long until he kind of goes a little crazy? Because he already has a patch, and it just touched him. So I don't know. And also now that they actually have to walk to get to Daenerys, is he even gonna be able to get there until he's fully covered in Greyscale? And we know that Sandrine also had the disease, but it seems to have stopped on her and she doesn't seem to be contagious. So what makes her so different? And is that why Melisandre is nice to her or likes her? Is there something about her that is different or special? I don't know. All in all, this episode had a similar feel to the first 4 episodes. We keep kind of moving each story forward, and I have a feeling that we're moving towards some sort of explosion towards the end of the season. I can't wait for this, and I'm kind of worried too. That's all I had to say for this week's episode. Of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know in the comments, or you can find me on Twitter at Sandrine. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our Game of Thrones reviews. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye! After watching the preview for next week's episode, it looks like Arya will be back training. We're also going to get a closer look at Myrcella in Dorne, who seems to be in love with the Dorne boys. And I'm wondering if we're gonna see a little bit of Jaime as well. And finally, it looks like Littlefinger is back in King's Landing. He's always one step ahead of us, this one.